Welcome back to another episode. Today I'm joined by Tasleem Jessani. So, Tasleem's a clinical hypnotherapist and leadership coach. She's got a wealth of experience coaching female leaders, ranging from line managers right up to C-suite executive leadership. Her background includes over a decade of experience in corporate human resources, as well as in her own executive coaching practice. Tasleem also uniquely specializes in using hypnotherapy as one of the tools to help clients create transformational change in how they show up in their leadership roles as well as for themselves in their lives. So much cool stuff to unpack. Tasleem, I'm really excited to connect with you. How are you today?
I'm doing well, enjoying the sunshine and glad that summer's almost here. And I'm super excited to be here.
Yeah, almost here for you. Definitely here for me over on the East Coast. We are melting. It's like high 90s all week
My
here.
goodness. Oh my gosh.
So I'm so curious because I know when we connected before this, I was like, I have to have her on the show, just hearing about your own unique trauma with being an immigrant and the bullying you experienced, depression, anxiety. Those are just things that I haven't brought onto the show yet, and I know is collectively experienced. So, as much as you're open to sharing, what was it like? Just what is your own unique trauma as an immigrant and the kind of bullying that you experienced? Was it growing up, adult? Tell us whatever you want to share.
Yeah, absolutely. What I think is interesting is I also have had the same experience as most other people, which is I went through this whole experience in my life, never really thinking it was trauma and just thinking it was normal. So, just the things for me in my life that started to prompt the healing journey, which was experiencing anxiety and depression, particularly after having children, was when it got the hardest because of the postpartum anxiety that I experienced. That's when I really had to go through my healing journey. And as I started to do that, that's when I realized the extent of the trauma that came from my childhood. So I feel like a lot of people might be able to relate to that because we often wonder, like, why am I going through all of this? And I had a lot of anxiety even when I was going to school. In my early 20s, I went to a diploma program to do my human resources diploma. And I had the most extreme anxiety. It was a high achiever. And I just thought it was me. I thought there's something wrong with me. I'm just hardwired this way. I just told myself that story, but unfortunately, it just got me into deeper places of anxiety and depression and feeling alone. And so through my healing journey, that's when I started to discover that, first of all, from a young age of 4, I migrated with my family from Africa to Canada. And, in Africa, my extended family was there. And, we were in a little town, everyone knows each other. And you come to Canada and it's massive, and it's not that we didn't know the language or anything. We learned English and everything was all good. But essentially, it was just being shocked at being treated differently because of skin color. And my brother and I was only around 4 or 5. My brother was 2 years older than me. We walked home from school by ourselves on like busy streets of Kingsway. If you're here in Vancouver, you know exactly what I'm talking about, like Main Street and Kingsway, not very safe places. Because my parents were working. They had to make a living for us. So expensive here, and having racial slurs, like go back home, people rolling down their windows, yelling at like a little 5-year-old, 7-year-old. It's really scary. But I didn't know. I actually didn't remember a lot of these, or I did remember, and I just thought, okay, they happened. But I didn't realize what it does to your body and how you freeze in these certain situations. And I remember when those things were happening, it's when I really started to have very intense nightmares and really, really scared of the dark. And again, I thought that was just my fault. And, my parents used to kind of say I tended to be a little bit more of a scaredy cat, I guess. But again, recognizing that all those fears and things, they were not naturally me. It's again, the work I do today is I'm a psychic trained psychic, trained medium. I can connect to other realms and other, you know, spirits and souls and energies. So as a more open being, to be attacked in that way is really scary. It's scary for any human being, but for me, it impacted me in a way that created such intense fear that I grew up with my mental mind just connecting it to something's wrong with me. I just have a problem. And yeah, so that's really, you know, there's so much more I could speak about it. I could just talk so much about it, but really just me understanding and still on a journey of reminding myself there's nothing wrong with me. It was a product of my circumstances. And being in school and also being bullied by children because I was a different skin color or because I wore glasses or just because I was the new kid. Literally, like I'm the new kid that just walked in. So, um, you know, I didn't invite in the bullying, but I thought there was something that was wrong with me, that everywhere I went, this would happen, you know? And I had to work a lot on deconditioning that. And that's where the hypnotherapy really helped me move past or actually start to move to a place of healing.
Wow. Yeah, there's so much to even unpack just in that short story, which I know only is a teaser of what you've really experienced in life. But it is interesting how kids will search for meaning because that's just how we're designed as humans. But if not given a different script or paradigm, we will default as humans, as little kids, to blame ourselves or think something's wrong with us. So it's interesting, like the nightmares, the fear of the dark, really, those are just symptoms of a nervous system that isn't feeling safe, that is in this survival response. And it makes sense now. You can see it with 2020 vision. Oh, the kinds of things I was experiencing, the different comments leading my body into a freeze response. I was never maybe taught how to move out of a freeze response or how to resolve that. Um, so I'm curious because you have your own kids. Is there a fear of the same things happening to them, or how are you handling it different?
Yeah, that's a good question. And when I first had kids, I think a lot of the anxiety that I started to experience from the postpartum depression probably was what was meant to propel me to start healing myself, because that is exactly what happened is I started to feel fear as soon as if my child was rejected in some way or was put into experiences like I was, where they're forced to go to like that male uncle that they don't want to go to and they're crying. Even their crying would set me off, somehow would remind me of my own crying when I was devastated as a child. And I noticed how intense the anxiety would get because I couldn't control the situation or change it. Um, some level of, I think, my journey was meant to be me trusting that I wanted to be a different parent than the parenting I received. My parents did an amazing job, they did the best they could. And yet I had a really deep desire that I want to be a different type of parent. So I think each time I was triggered with my kids wanting to control an outcome in some way was that moment where some light would hit me and just would be like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to treat my children like they're not being heard for what they're experiencing, because that's how I felt as a child. I'm extremely scared and I had nobody to go to. It felt like, you know, if I'm bullied or even back in Africa, you're put in a dark room if you misbehave. You don't even know why you've misbehaved, to be honest. But I never wanted my child to be as scared as I was.
Yeah.
And so just because of that is I just committed to a journey where I'm going to work on my fears head on. And in that, I started to heal myself so that I don't react as much with my children. And I created an environment that I didn't even realize where they could come to me for anything and are feeling fully accepted. And I
Mm.
still have my fears coming up because my daughter, she's now 12. And it was around the same age I developed an eating disorder because I was bullied so much for my weight and different things. And it does, the thoughts come up, what if this happens to her? And I hear so many stories about young girls experiencing all these issues with eating disorders or their appearance, or and then I have to find again my center, that okay, that's my fear, it's really coming up, and I can heal myself and I can just keep accepting them for who they are. And because the moment I panic is the moment I'm going to start doing a bunch of things that's going to make them panic. And that's the opposite. So it's hard for any of those people who are doing the cycle breaking work
Yeah.
and your mothers. I have to tell you, it's we've never been taught, so we have to sort of teach ourselves and then do it for our kids. And it's so hard. I call it a different level of sandwich generation, this emotional sandwich that we have as being these cycle breakers. It's insane.
So true. Have you heard of Dr. Becky, the parenting coach?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm
Yes.
like, you're sounding like her. I love her stuff. Are you in her community, the monthly?
I'm not in her community, but I follow her and I love the things that she talks about. And sometimes I feel like so reinforced when I listen to her because the healing work, when we listen to her intuition, lines up so much
Mhm.
with the things she talks about that I'm like, okay, I got this. We can do this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for anyone listening who's like, oh my God, I would love to break cycles in parenting or just resonating with what Tasleem is saying, go look up Dr. Becky Good Inside. She has a podcast, she's on Instagram, and she has a community for only, I think, $87 a month, and it's revolutionized my parenting. So, you also brought up something that I didn't expect you to say and didn't know about you, but you said you're a psychic medium. Now,
Yes.
I don't know about your upbringing with that word alone, but I grew up in a very Christian home. And so anything psychic or, of that realm in that category was taught to me as evil and dangerous and stay away. And there's been a lot of fear with me around growing up with this association immediately of a woman in a dark room with a crystal ball, and like dealing with spirits. And I know a lot of my listeners might have the same upbringing and the same association. I have gotten more curious, really curious, and asked a lot of questions to people like yourself, who are gifted with this. And so I'm just curious what your upbringing was with this and what psychic medium actually means to you, how you stumbled upon even knowing that about yourself.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So I grew up in a Muslim household, so very similar types of things that flow through, which is there's some level of acceptance and tolerance towards the whole idea of past lives and all of that. We really do believe in meditating and all of that. And yet, yes, there is this element of you have to watch what you say when it comes to like spirits and all these things. Um, there, yeah, growing up, I felt like the confusion for me was that if I talked about things like that, like I feel an icky energy or something, it was quickly passed off to you're too sensitive or you're just imagining things. Like I could never even handle very scary images on the screen. Mind you, I grew up watching pretty violent movies too. I mean, in East Indian culture, you have Bollywood movies and things. They are, I mean, I don't even know how kids at any age should be able to watch that. And I don't bring my kids even near it. Um, so I went through so many things that I was told is just me, that even the idea that maybe I did see things when I was little that I didn't realize or felt energies I didn't understand how to control or navigate felt like it was just me crazy. Like I'm crazy. Something is wrong with me. I just kept that sort of on the side for myself. Like it was something I always believed in, but I just never expressed it and just became very logical, like go to school, get your education, like do the things you're supposed to, make money. And, but there's this piece of myself I was missing, which is the flow and the intuition and the being able to understand even what a quote unquote download is. Like the first time I heard somebody using the term download, I was like, what is that? And I didn't realize all my life that's how I'm operating, is I download these things just energetically as I'm talking to people. And each time I would share it, the person would be like, how did you know I was thinking that? And I was like, I don't know. Or you said it exactly like I wanted to say it. Like, oh, okay. So how did I stumble upon it? Again, it was when I was in corporate, and I was in corporate for a decade, corporate environment, working human resources, 9 to 5 role. burnt out with two kids. I finally said one day, I can't do this rat race. I love the work I do, but I can't sit in an office for this many hours in a day and manage kids and a household. And I finally quit my job and decided to start my own business, executive coaching. And I went into a really deep depression then because I was home alone all the time. And the connection that I lost was so big that when I went into this place, I just started to ask for help, just sitting there asking for help. My fears got worse, the fear of dark. And I mean, I'm like a 30 something year old woman at the time going through these fears. It felt ridiculous. But I just asked for help, and I was connected with someone who's a naturopath, but also doing intuitive work. And as she started to help me with some of the things I was going through, she helped me to start opening up my intuition. And I started to learn all these things that I have a gift. And I didn't even know what mediumship was the first time I heard about it. What the heck is that? Which now I understand to be connecting to passed away loved ones, or even just the ability to even pick up the energies or messages from angels or guides is all mediumship work. And so I just started to learn that because I trusted the person, the mentor I was working with, and understood, oh, those are my unique gifts. They're not something that makes me crazy. So now today I use that in my practice so much because it's the only way I can. It's almost like I have the flashlight that guides my client through the darkness. When they're navigating the darkness, I can use my skills to give them that light and that path. And it's the most valuable thing I can offer everyone that I work with, because they can't always see what's next for them. But I can help guide that with the light that I have through these gifts. So that's
Wow.
kind of how I see it today.
Yeah, I love how you just described that. I'm currently reading the book called Signs by Laura Lynn Jackson. Have you heard of that book?
I have heard of the book. Yeah.
Okay, so it's just funny that we're ending up recording today because this has really been on my mind. And my mom is currently on hospice. She has Alzheimer's, and it's just made me more curious than ever about, where is she going? What's next? My dad died when I was 18. He suddenly had a heart attack. And he was the one that really ingrained deeply into me that anything psychic is bad. He was very, very, very very Christian. And so I just always thought, like, once he passed, like, I'm not allowed to connect with him. Like, it literally felt like bad or wrong to believe that. And it wasn't until I had a mentor that started talking about this gifting of mediumship in a different way that I deeply, deeply trusted. And so it was out of a very intuitive, full body chills, nudge, like leaning in to have my first ever reading that I decided to do it. And I'll tell you, I was terrified because the conditioning was so deep, Tasleem, that this was bad, wrong, gonna pull me away from God, cut me off from right love and belonging. And I've never spoken about this publicly, actually. I've told a few clients here and there, but that was one of the most healing, like, I'm just getting emotional thinking about it now, experiences of my life is meeting with this woman who was referred to by a deeply trusted friend. And I set up the meeting really hoping, like, I hope my dad shows up. I don't even know if I believe this. I feel so skeptical and scared, but like, I'm open to at least trying this out, and if it doesn't feel right, I won't do this again or whatever. And the woman who was, like, doing this session with me, she didn't know me, and as far as my dad, there's nothing about him even on the internet as far as, like, the work he did. I was thinking of all of these things, like, did she research me ahead of time? Like, I'm not gonna tell this woman crap about my life so that I don't give her any clues or hints. And as soon as we sat down together and started, she described a male figure showing up, and I immediately, like, my heart started racing, my whole body was getting butterflies and hopeful, like, is it him? Is it him? Like, I just felt like I missed him so much. Could it be? And she described this man as sitting down and he was fiddling with like electrical wires. And what she saw was basically a submarine, and I immediately started bawling because my dad was an electrical engineer on submarines for the Navy. And I was
Right.
like, you gotta be kidding me. There's like nothing out there on the internet that would let her know that. Are you? And there was a lot of things like that where it's like, that's too descriptive and too spot on for this to be coincidence or just whatever. So it was so healing. And I could say so much more, but also white butterflies have always been a thing, like a way that I have felt since I was a little girl of God communicating to me that everything's going to be okay. But recently, this white butterfly flew into my face, literally like hit me in the forehead, and it made me laugh. And it was so playful that I was like, Dad, was that you? And I got full body chills, like right through my body. And so, just a lot of from that experience to now losing my mom, I'm just curious about all of that. Like, do we live multiple lives? I grew up with this very black and white solid picture of you just go to heaven, it's one life, that's it. And now it's been a conversation I've been having with people a lot lately, even yesterday. So,
Wow.
just curious after hearing that, if you have any other thoughts coming through to you.
I just first of all want to say what a beautiful experience. And also the full body chills is a thing. It's totally
Mhm.
a thing. You were talking, I kept getting the entire chills. And if anyone ever sits in situations where you're getting the chills, trust them. There's something magical there that's a connection. But everything you said is so real. I remember working with a client and literally very similar stuff, right? She told me nothing. And I just said, I see you in a pink hoodie holding a fish. And she's like, oh my gosh, I went traveling around with my dad and was healing with her dad too. And we caught a fish and I was standing and pretty sure, yeah, I was wearing a pink hoodie. And it's just that these energies, they do like that realm does want to communicate with us. It is a topic that is controversial, I'll call it. Everyone has their own ideas, but I feel like the world is opening up to it more and understanding it more. And we can't deny it when people we love pass away. We can't deny it when the healing happens when we connect to them. Those are the moments we can't deny that there is more out there. I mean, can I answer 100% what it's like? No, but I believe that as long as we can trust that we're not alone and that we have so much guidance and these things literally happen the white butterflies and the it happens, and when you start to trust and believe it, more signs show up, and it just takes you on your journey to make yourself a higher version of you. So I just want to say I appreciate you sharing that beautiful experience, because yeah, it chills all over the place. And I started to smile when, as soon as you talked about the wires. Why did I smile? I don't know. I don't know your dad either, right? I don't know anything about your life, but I smiled. Some part of that really, I was like, oh yeah. So that's just what happens is we just kind of go, yeah, that's it. Something about that makes me smile. And your
Yeah.
story just confirmed it.
Thank you. Yeah, I was talking with my friend yesterday and she was like, I wonder if this sounds so morbid, but death is one of your life themes slash lessons. Because ever since I was a little girl, I had a very deep fear of death. And part of that was hearing so much about the apocalypse and second coming and kind of those kinds of scary teachings when it came to religion that I was like, maybe that's why I was so afraid since I was a kid. It wasn't until learning somatic healing that I was able to think about death without having a panic attack for the first time in my life, and that was 3 years ago. And so I went from this terror and association of fear and anxiety with death to now being able to talk about it, think about it, and not excited about it, but like not freaking out. And then with this journey of my mom on hospice, for the first time, I would call it a curiosity, which I know is a good sign that I'm feeling safe, right? To even consider. And I'm just wondering if this is like a life theme or lesson of mine, and I don't know what's to come of it, but this is the most peace and curiosity I've ever felt about it. And just with my mom, there's so much mourning for sure and grief, but I feel so much peace that this is also natural and what her body knows how to do. And she's going to be supported through it. And she's said many times she'll talk about her mom and her dad who have passed on, and it's almost like she sees them. And I'm just wondering if it's her transitioning to welcomed open arms.
Yeah.
So, yeah, thank you
I
for
I appreciate you sharing that. I've had actually the same fear. I think this is so interesting that you mentioned that. That was besides the nightmares and the fear of dark, fear of death is my ultimate, has been my ultimate. And I always wondered too, is that a life theme for me? And my journey too has been looking for safety, also healing my grandpa's death and grieving it properly has started to bring me peace in the death process, which almost feels very similar to the vibe of healing with your dad's death. It's like the less we understand about a situation and the suddenness of them leaving and not grieving. And you said the word safety, and that's exactly it. It's like, in my religion too, we learn all this stuff about judgment day. And as a soul, then you're going to be judged to do good, to do bad. All these things, they just create all this fear and unsafety. And then we lose somebody so important in our life. And I think it's interesting for both of us, it was male figures, but not understanding even that what happens there, or it's all very, like you say, somatic based, but also just, yeah, a life journey of learning and understanding what our key value is in the world and where we fit into the picture. And I think even connecting to our intuition is such a big piece of it. I feel like almost like death is like I hate saying it, but like the perfect way to remind you that you're infinite, And it's like almost this concept you just cannot grasp, but you just have to accept. And then that's when the intuition really opens and you just see magic start to happen. And I think as human beings, that's what we're meant to do. That's why death is present for us every day, so that we're reminded it's infinite, like we are infinite. I don't know why I said that. Felt like a download, but it just felt right to say. But it was interesting. Thank you for sharing your experience with death.
It's funny, serendipitous. You're saying infinite over and over again because my dad's symbol to me, he'd always sign his notes with is the infinity symbol.
You gotta love that. There you go.
Oh, you're
It's
good at what you do. That's funny. Uh,
yeah.
Gosh, I could ask so many more questions. We might have to have a part two. And it's funny because this wasn't the direction we were planning on going, but it's the direction that it needed to take. And this was fascinating. I'll ask one more question for people who might be able to relate to the background that you had, maybe, the eating disorders, racism, anxiety, depression, and maybe even particularly the death anxiety we've been talking about. What practical steps do you offer listeners of what they can take to create this relationship that's less anxious with themselves, with these different areas, and one that does feel more safe?
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, it depends always on where a person is at in their life journey. Some people have done way more healing and somatic work and things than others. I always do recommend starting with that somatic piece because we need to feel safe in our bodies, and that starts with the breath. So when I work with people, I always want to assess, do you know how to access your breath? Do you know how to access it appropriately? And what I mean by appropriately is, especially as women, we have to breathe into our lower abdomen. We have to breathe into the pelvic area, and we have to learn grounding and connection to earth. So I typically teach those practices first, which I'm actually in the process of developing some meditations that I hope will be ready soon so that people can download that easily. But as soon as we connect down to earth, and especially for us women, if we engage that pelvic area, it's our creativity and it's our, again, like our connection to the infinite, because as women we connect to another realm with our womb. It's just so deeply important. So for women to access that kind of breathing is really important, and then really just understanding what are you feeling and what are your needs. And that often starts with the breath. When you ground and get the breath engaged, you can then ask, where do I feel any tension in my body? and then just going to that place, breathing into that place, and then just asking, what is my need? What is it that you need? Like if it's a tight chest, if it's tight shoulders, okay, tight chest. I can feel your heart beating fast. I can feel the muscles are contracted. What is it you need right now? Because I think women just have not learned for a very long time to meet their needs, or what it even is to meet your own needs. And so that's where I always recommend starting. And I really suggest for people, if they ever want to reach out and understand what's happening with them, let's have a chat, because I can at least just tune in that first discussion. That's free. We just chat and we can find where it's in the body. Because as you know, it's somatic work. Connection to the body can be that much more difficult too if there's safety issues, if
Mm.
you've never been connected, if you have disassociation patterns. It's not as easy as I'm just saying it like, oh, just breathe. It's not really that easy, right? So, yeah, there's some practices I can lead people through, but I really suggest that, which is breath. Start with the breath and then just ask your body, what does it need? And start to connect that way daily, 3 times a day. Just set a timer.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the game changer for me, my listeners know where I did skip the somatic piece for 10 years because nobody taught me. It wasn't even like a thing or talked about. And so I was doing all the things everyone says to do, the traditional therapy and the couples counseling, books, podcasts, and just spinning my wheels and living in a constant freeze, holding my breath, waiting for the next shoe to drop. So when I stumbled upon somatic work, the name of her program actually is called Beyond Breath. And it was all about coming back to the breath. Like that's the starting point. Our breath is a mirror to our life. So if we're noticing our breath is constricted and short or shallow, notice, do we feel that way in life? Do we feel overwhelmed, like we're drowning? It's too stuffed. And the cool thing too is we have the power to come back to our breath, come home to our breath at any moment, choose to practice a different rhythm of breathing, and therefore, same with life. We have the invitation available to us at any moment that many of us are waiting for someone else to give us permission to live a different life or move at a different rhythm or pace when really it's the power is within us. We got to decide if we want to change something. So
Yeah, that
I
was
just
beautiful.
yeah. So where can people connect with you, follow you, find you, tell us all the things?
Yeah, so I'm on all the social media platforms, well, almost all. I'm on Instagram, I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Facebook as well. You can always follow me, DM me. I also have a website, which I think you might be including in the show notes, the website information. So people can also just check out my information there and send me message through there to connect with a call. But yeah, I love to hear from people. So if you are comfortable sending me a DM, you've listened to this podcast and find me on Instagram, for example, and send me a DM, I'd love to hear from you. So yeah, those are the best ways to find me.
Thank you, Tasleem. And is there anything else that I didn't ask you or mention that you feel like you'd like to share before we hop off?
Well, I mean, there's lots we can talk about one day with the hypnotherapy, but I just wanted to mention that for all those women out there who are, working through all the things personally, but also professionally, that the work I do, I really help women, especially in corporate world, find their voice and find their space in corporate life. So I'm really excited to work with women who are, you want success in your career, so definitely reach out if you're one of those women who's like, I've been trying to go for a promotion forever, or I just want to go to this place in my career. Reach out and let's have a chat. I know we didn't speak about that a lot today, but hopefully one day we will. But if anyone's curious, reach out and I can answer your questions.
Yeah, I'd love to have a whole another conversation on hypnotherapy, and I'd love to bring you into my client group too. Do you do group hypnotherapy or is it a one-on-one thing?
You know what? I have done group hypnotherapy before and it works really well. I found that in my practice that a lot of people want to do the one-to-one because I can actually specifically guide people based on what comes up. But when I have done group hypnotherapy, people found immense, um, they've really enjoyed it. They've really felt expanded from it. The only thing is I can't go to their own unique situations are coming up. And that's when people usually come and do the individual. So if that's ever an interest to you, I'd be happy to come and do a group hypnotherapy. That would be actually super fun.
Yeah, I'd love to have you in. Let's definitely chat offline about that. But thank you for coming in today, for being on the podcast, Tasleem. You're a beautiful
Thanks.
soul, and I really enjoyed this conversation.
Me too. Thanks, Becky. I didn't know we had so much in common, but I loved it and I look forward to hopefully chatting again.
Same here.